Senator Dick Durbin live in Washington this morning. All right, we got to jump in on one of your most annoying topics, and that's nobody being grown up enough to pay the bills or have a financial package, and this continued resolution nonsense that goes on. Will the Senate get this done by the weekend, and where's the House?
Well, we're ready. We've got a bipartisan agreement between the House and the Senate leadership. Executing it on the floor of the House is always an amazing feat politically. I think they can do it. As to when they will do it, it's not for certain. There are certain rules in the House. And then, of course, it's up to the Senate to offer amendments, which eats up a clock, too. The bottom line is it will be done. I think it will be done. That there will be no government shutdown, but it could take a little bit of time to achieve it.
And do you think the majority of those in your branch, in the Senate, understand that the growing cynicism and apathy of America with incredibly low voter turnouts can be directly tied to this kind of nonsense of not being able to do the basics?
I think the majority understands that, and that's why the majority has agreed, Republicans and Democrats, to get the job done. But a minority in the House, and it's just a matter of a handful of members, object to that. They want the confrontation. They want the chaos. They are inspired by their presidential candidate to do it. In the Senate, you need 60 votes at some juncture, which means you have to have a bipartisan agreement. So enough Republicans have to stand up to agree with Democrats for it to happen. So the minorities in both chambers create the chaos.
The news out of Chicago that I know your office is focused on includes...
Well, trains. Good morning, Senator. I know you and Senator Duckworth both met with Canadian National Railway this week to talk about their involvement with the Chicago Hub Improvement Program. So would this basically modernize Union Station and make us more of a train hub?
Make it much more efficient. You know, we are notorious in Chicago for two things. We are in smack dab in the middle of this country, and transportation really depends on Chicago. And secondly, we've got a mess on our hands. This patchwork system has been created over decades and needs to be modernized. Senator Duckworth and I met with Canadian National leadership. They're sitting down with Amtrak. I think we're on, excuse the pun, on the right track.
You wrote that an hour ago, didn't you?
Yeah, I got up this morning.
Yeah. There's not nearly enough to worry about in the world, and now we hear about something called gas station heroin. Parents and grandparents, listen up about this. What is it?
Well, it is a chemical that is being sold in gasoline stations that can be deadly. And what most Americans don't realize, Steve, is that just because they put it in a bottle and put a label on it and make health claims doesn't mean it has ever been tested by anyone. We now have 100,000 dietary supplements being sold in the United States.
Good Lord.
The Food and Drug Administration does not even have the names of all of them, let alone a copy of the label or the ingredients. And some of these can be deadly, and that's exactly what we face now. This tianeptine is for sale in gas stations, and people they think it's harmless. Oh, it's going to give me a buzz, or it's going to keep me awake, or whatever the claim may be. But they've never been tested. So we're writing to the Food and Drug Administration saying, take these damn things off the shelves. I'm writing to the industry saying, you are endangering the lives of a lot of innocent people by selling this crap. And it's time to put an end to it.
Now, take me backstage for just a second. We're in the lightning round here because you got to go take care of some business as well. But take me backstage for a second, because when we think about the relative age of the Senate, not you certainly, but the relative age of the Senate and the House, who informs and keeps these senators and these House members up on things like that? I don't picture members of Congress trolling gas stations looking for trouble.
Well, we rely on the media to a great extent. Channel 7 has done a great job in the Chicagoland area on this issue. And we see it all the time, whether it's NPR or one of the newspapers or your station for that matter. If they do an investigation that comes to our attention, we decide whether it has merit to it, and if it does, we pursue it. Our agencies of the government do their job, but they need help. As I mentioned, 100,000 dietary supplements. How in the world are we supposed to keep up with that mess?
And constituents can call the office and say, listen, I don't know if this is somebody, you ought to look into it, right?
Well, they can and they do in some instances, but many of them are very wary of the government getting involved at all. And for example, I have talked about registering all of these products with the FDA, so we know their names, we know what the label looks like, and we know what the ingredients are. As soon as I do this at the dietary supplement stores all over Illinois, there's a note put on the cash register: "Be careful, Durbin's trying to take away your multiple vitamins each day." Well,
wow.
That couldn't be further from the truth, but that's the kind of thing you know is part of my business.
All right, one more before we let you go, and it's a big one.
Real quick, Senator, I know Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu wanted to speak with Senate Democrats, and Senate Majority Leader Schumer yesterday refused that request. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I can tell you basically, here's the premise. Israel has the right to exist, the right to defend itself. What happened October 7th was an atrocious act of terrorism by Hamas. You can understand why they don't want it to ever happen again. Having said that, the execution of this strategy by Israel is creating one of the largest humanitarian crises of our time in Gaza. There are children literally starving to death. The Israelis are stopping shipments of humanitarian food and medicine and water, and it's a deadly situation. This has to come to an end. We are subsidizing the Israeli effort, and they have to live up to standards.
Would you expect big developments in that in the next week to 10 days, since we are on the clock here?
I don't know how soon Speaker Johnson will bring this, what we call the defense supplemental, up, but I want it to happen soon because it provides funds for the people in Ukraine who are trying to stop this thug Putin from invading and taking over their country. The Israeli assistance is in there too, so the sooner we get to it and consider the options, the better.
Appreciate your time as always. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Senator.
Senator Dick Durbin, live in Washington this morning.